In the world of semiconductors, there's a war being fought. Not with bombs or bullets, but with light and atoms. Two companies are battling to build the tiniest, most powerful chips on Earth. One is the undisputed champion TSMC. The other is the relentless challenger Samsung. And the prize? Trillions of dollars, the future of AI, and control over the devices we use every day. In this deep dive, we're going to look at the battle lines, the technology, the yields, and the strategy. Who is winning the race to 2 nanometers? And what happens next? Let's find out. To understand the battle, you need to know the landscape. There are only 3 companies on the planet that can make the most advanced chips: Intel, Samsung, and TSMC. But in the contract foundry business where you make chips for other companies, it's really a two-horse race. TSMC dominates with over 90% of the advanced node market. They're the go-to for Apple, NVIDIA, and Qualcomm. Their technology is reliable, their yields are high, and they have a reputation for execution. Samsung is the challenger. They're the only other company that can produce cutting-edge chips at scale. But they've struggled with something crucial: yield, the percentage of working chips on a silicon wafer. And that struggle has defined the entire race. At the heart of this battle right now is the 2-nanometer node. All 3 companies are bringing 2-nanometer class processors to market in 2026. But the real fight is between TSMC and Samsung's two. Here's where it gets technical, but stick with me. The reason 2 nanometers is such a big deal is because it's the first node to use a new type of transistor called gate-all-around, or GAA, instead of the old FinFET design, where the gate wraps around 3 sides of the channel. GAA wraps around all 4 sides. This gives better control, lower power consumption, and higher performance. Samsung actually got to GAA first. They launched their 3-nanometer GAA process back in 2022, years ahead of TSMC. That was a huge technical achievement. But being first didn't mean being best. The yields were terrible. Samsung's 2 process is now in production. They're using it for the Exynos 2600 chip in the Galaxy S26. But here's the catch. TSMC 2 is the most eagerly awaited, and it's expected to be in Apple iPhones before the end of the year. And the reason is simple. TSMC's execution is almost flawless. TSMC also has a long-term plan. They've already revealed their roadmap all the way to the sub-1 nanometer era. They plan to start at 16, which is 1.6 nanometers in 2027, then a 14 in 2028, and a 13 and a 12 in 2029. They're not just winning at 2 nanometers. They're planning to dominate the next decade. So, if Samsung got to GAA first, why aren't they winning? It all comes down to one word: yield. And the numbers are brutal. As of mid-2026, Samsung's 2-nanometer yields are stuck in the mid-50% range, around 55%. The industry threshold for stable mass production is about 60%. And after you factor in back-end processing, the effective yield drops to around 40%. That means nearly half of the chips produced are defective. Meanwhile, TSMC's 2-nanometer yields are reportedly in the 60 to 70% range, with mature target yields projected at 75%. That gap, even 10 to 15 percentage points, is massive. It affects cost, reliability, and customer confidence. Here's a real-world example. The Galaxy S26 uses Samsung's Exynos 2600 chip in some regions. But in the US, Samsung uses the 3-nanometer Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5. The Exynos is 2 nanometers, technically more advanced, but Samsung isn't confident enough in its performance to put it in their biggest market. That tells you everything. To be fair, Samsung has improved, As recently as the second half of 2025, yields were stuck in the 20% range. Getting from 20% to 55% in less than a year is impressive. But they still haven't crossed the threshold that big customers like Apple, NVIDIA, and AMD need. Here's where the story gets interesting. Despite the yield gap, Samsung's Foundry business returned to monthly profit in June 2026 after 4 years of losses. How? Not because they beat Samsung technology, but because TSMC's full 2-nanometer capacity is booked through 2028. The demand for A chips from NVIDIA and others is so huge that TSMC simply can't make enough. So clients are forced to look for alternatives. Samsung is the overflow option. We're seeing big tech companies turn to Samsung. NVIDIA announced a joint A factory with Samsung in October 2025. Tesla is producing its A5 chips at both Samsung and TSMC, and its A6 chips will be made at Samsung's Texas facility. Meta could give Samsung its biggest A chip order yet. Google is also exploring Samsung for future chips, but here's the key. These aren't decisions based on Samsung's technical superiority. They're based on TSMC's capacity constraints. As one industry insider put it, this is not a competitive reversal. It is a structural overflow event. Samsung is benefiting from demand they can't create on their own. So, what's the long-term strategy? The two companies are going in completely different directions. TSMC is accelerating toward 1-nanometer. They are sprinting to a 16, a 14, and beyond. They're also introducing new technologies like backside power delivery, which moves the power network to the back of the wafer to improve efficiency. Every step is planned, predictable, and on schedule. Samsung, on the other hand, has hit the brakes. They've delayed their 1.4-nanometer process by about 2 years from 2027 to 2029. Instead of chasing the next big node, they're focusing on stabilizing 2 nanometers, improving yields, and building customer trust. This is a fascinating divergence. TSMC is betting that technological leadership will keep them ahead. Samsung is betting that reliability and capacity will eventually attract clients. Which strategy is better? For now, TSMC is winning. Their yields are better, their execution is flawless, and their ecosystem is unmatched. They also have a key advantage. They don't compete with their customers. Samsung makes its own phones and devices, so some clients worry about sharing their secrets. At the end of the day, the 2-nanometer battle isn't just about who reaches the node first. It's about yield stability, ecosystem compatibility, power delivery, and manufacturing scale. The winner will be the one that can manufacture advanced chips reliably and at volume. TSMC is the clear leader right now. But Samsung is making progress. Their 55% yields are a far cry from the 20% they had a year ago. And with demand for A chips continuing to explode, there's room for both players. One thing is certain. The semiconductor race is only going to get more intense. As we move toward 1-nanometer and beyond, the costs will rise, the challenges will multiply, and the stakes will get even higher. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments, do you think Samsung can ever catch up to TSMC? I'll see you in the next one.